welcome back to Halfway to Healing. I am Sam.
And I'm Sharna. And today we're digging into something so many people wrestle with, but don't always feel safe talking about: mental health at work. And the big question of whether to disclose it or not.
We're talking about the pressure to be professional and the fear of being seen as unreliable and how hard it is to navigate mental health in workplaces, especially ones that aren't always set up to support it.
We both had very different experiences, from choosing to stay quiet to speaking up and dealing with the fallout. And we're opening up about what we've learned along the way.
So let's dive in. This is a really interesting space for me as a business owner because I am the boss. And I think we've just mentioned it in passing before, but Sharna actually works for me.
I do.
She's my little admin assistant.
I am.
But I didn't always just own my own business. I have worked in a couple places. Before I started running my business full time, I worked in 2 different stores, like grocery stores. You could probably figure it out, but as always, we'll keep anonymity, or try to. But it's Australia, and how many grocery stores are there?
Yeah, like major ones,
Yeah. What kind of jobs have you had, Sharna?
So I honestly haven't had too many, I want to say commercial jobs. So when I was younger, I did some dog walking and stuff, very typical stuff like that. House sitting, babysitting. That was all more like cash in hand jobs, so it wasn't really reported to the government.
Dodgy.
Right, I know. Hospitality jobs, which also was cash in hand, so also a bit dodgy, but I won't name that because I don't want to get them in trouble or anything. Which way? And then now with you, who you actually pay me properly. Yeah.
Yeah, I do pay you properly because one, I don't think I could do it morally. I think that I would just not be able to not pay someone for the work. But also, if I get audited, and the last thing I'd want is to get audited and I missed a training day, for example, and then I owe you, $600 in training, or whatever. And I don't have a lot of. I'm a very small business. I don't often have big amounts of cash in my float.
Yeah.
But it's really funny because around the time I hired you and you were talking about how, oh my gosh, you're going to pay me for my training
I know.
was around the time when my previous employers were having to back pay me from 2014, 2015 because they didn't pay for my training. And I just thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
So, how do we even get started in this? You and I both, as that's the whole point of this, have a lot of mental health struggles. And I wanted to focus on mental health in this episode, when I was writing the topic ideas, because physical health is a lot. I'm going to put a disclaimer at the end of this sentence because it is. But physical health is, I think, in the workplace seen with a lot more understanding.
Oh, I absolutely agree.
Now, there's a disclaimer because if you've got chronic health issues, that kind of starts to fall apart, as you would know with me. But mental health is very hush-hush. And at least my jobs that I had before were very much on Anti-Bullying Day and Mental Health Awareness Months, and all the awareness days would be big and flashy and, flashy. But, outside of that, it was never really seen. And I think, my working in a supermarket really messed with my mental health because customers are just awful.
Oh,
I'm not sure if you get that if you felt that in hospitality. But the work comes with stresses amongst itself. And then if you're dealing with your own mental health stuff, that adds a additional layer. And I know for me, having bipolar, one of my big things is I think when I'm manic, I speak without thinking, if I get the words the right way around.
Yeah.
And quite often I'd snap at customers, not because they were necessarily doing anything, but just because they were shitting me that day and I happened to be manic. But like explaining that to an employer where, especially in a supermarket, you're super replaceable.
Yeah.
Like, you know, super replaceable. Anyone really can do a supermarket job. And when you're a casual, where they don't have to fire you, they can just stop giving you shifts.
Yeah.
You know, and I lived outside of home. I needed to have a lot of shifts. And so I know I had a lot of fear of being like, I didn't want to be like, hey, I've got bipolar, I've got all these things. That's why I'm out. That's why I go home a lot. And I didn't want to tell them that just because I knew that I had this fear that it would start impacting my ability to get shifts. Not my job. I knew it was never going to impact my ability to do the job. But yeah, and I know there's now there's like an EAP. I think it's the Employee Assistance Program, which offers counseling and things like that, because I had an instance where I was being bullied, harassed, or like another employee was causing a lot of difficulty for me, and I did reach out and I was like, this is becoming like such a problem, and I reached out to the Employee Assistance Program, and that was all funded by work, and you know, I got counseling for that. But that was really stressful because I had to continuously work with this person who was just causing I was ready to throw hands. But how is it? I know hospitality is a lot more high strung than a supermarket. So how did you go? Like, I guess, do you want to talk about how you went, how that you dealt with that, if you were worried?
Yeah. So when I was working in hospitality for a long time, I was the junior, to say. I not by both age and roles we did within the business. And so thankfully, whenever there was a difficult customer or something that was kind of not appropriate, or someone was almost not harassing, but just dealing with a difficult customer, thankfully one of the seniors would be able to sort of step forward and handle that. So in regards to dealing with customers, it wasn't too bad. Then it got to a point where I was the senior because some shifts were rotated and I was dealing with more responsibilities. And, the seniors would be walking past, but most of the time it was only 2 or 3 of us in the kitchen section. It was a very small cafe. And so then I had this new responsibility to try and almost deal with these difficult customers that were not being so nice and saying things and, not harassing, but just harassing,
being,
I guess.
Iffy.
Yeah. And so I think I managed that as best I could. Thankfully, I live on a little mountain, and so it's quite a good community up here. And so most people are quite, patient and understanding. And so that was definitely something I feel like I had to sort of learn to try and, protect the well-being of this junior that was on, but also myself, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So dealing with customers is definitely an interesting thing. Yeah.
I think when I started my business, was so scared of this idea to be professional.
Yeah.
I was if I'm meeting business people, if I'm meeting clients, I know that was a massive fear of mine, where I was like, if I'm not professional, who would want to work for me? If I tell them I've got mental health, particularly mental health problems and disabilities, how's that going to look on me? How's that going to reflect on business? Because I always know that my work, absolutely my work alone, and the same with applying for jobs. I'm like, if you look at my work, it is phenomenal. But when you in job interviews and meeting me, I don't always come across as the most, especially with my health, I don't come across on paper as the most capable person.
Yeah.
I do take a lot of time off. I'm often in the hospital for various reasons, whether that's my mental or physical health. And I spent, and when I was working at one of the supermarkets, I was living in and out of the psych ward. So I would get rostered, and then like 2 days later I would be like, Soz, I can't do all these shifts because I'm in emergency right now. I'm waiting for a bed in the psychiatric unit. And that was really hard. And I think trying to convince people that I'm good at my job was always like this big fear. And I feel like I almost have to have, like, I always have this perfectionistic kind of standard on the work, because I feel like alone, the work can speak for itself, but because I'm dealing with all this other crap, and that's like a big fear of mine, where I'm like, how do I show clients and business people that, hey, I can do what I'm doing? But a big turning point for me was, I remember, like, this was like 2 years ago now. I was in a meeting with a client. Like, I had a meeting with a client, and I was not there. I was having like one of the shittest days in existence. And so I didn't want to reschedule this meeting. I think I'd already rescheduled it a few times, and I was like, I've just got to go to this meeting. And they asked me if, like, you know, general niceties, like, oh, how are you going? And I broke down. I was like, you know, when you're like, when you're having a bad day and you drop a pen, or someone asks if you're okay, and you're like, I was until this
It was
happened.
like the straw that broke the camel's back. You were fine, and then someone just like says like, oh, you okay? You're like,
no, I'm not okay. And I actually ended up opening up to them and being like, you know what? No, I'm not okay. This is what's going on. And and I was really worried they were going to fire me on the spot. I was like, this is it. This is done. But I can't keep going. And I can't keep putting up this facade. And instead I was like met with like this mass kindness, this humanity, like, and they said to me, you know what, I'm having a shit day too. And I'm pretty sure 90% of this meeting was us kind of just sharing our mutual experience in the fact that in business, you've got to be on all the time. And I was like, that wasn't as scary as I thought. And so now, I mean, this was 2 years ago, but now like when I'm having a discovery call with someone, I tell them up front, I'm like, you know what, I've got bipolar. Some days are going to be like, some days are going to be great. Some days are going to be shit. You know, it's plastered all over my blog that I've got, you know, all these disabilities. And it's been such a point for me in my business of human connection. And I don't understand why other businesses, like especially big businesses, have this productivity related expectation that we're not human. Like, we're not machines in a cog. And I know, like, when I brought you on board, I mean, I know we met in a therapy group. So it was, you know, I mean, what were you going to do? Not tell me? I think about where we met. But that was one of the key reasons I wanted to hire you, is because I knew, funnily enough, I knew you had mental health struggles and that you would understand mine. I could understand yours. And, you know, and so it's wild to me that businesses don't do this, because I've not gotten jobs because I've disclosed it. Right?
That's terrible.
Also,
and people shouldn't. Oh, sorry, you go.
I was going to say, I've also gotten jobs because they decided it was too far for me to travel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're like, oh, you're too far away. And I'm like, I applied for this job knowing where it was. I factored that in, interestingly. Could you imagine if someone didn't hire you because you live on the mountain?
A mountain, yeah.
Oh, driving 40 minutes in each day. Oh, that's too much for you to deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, what were you going to say? If you can remember.
Just touching on when you were saying, like, when you were like in that space where like you didn't disclose your like mental health conditions. No one should have to feel like they can't say what they have, you know, what they have. That doesn't make sense, but
I know what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Yeah. No one should feel that fear that they're not going to get a job just because they have bipolar or they have this.
No.
Then,
it makes an already stressful process. Like with me, I know I'm in and out of the hospital. I don't really have a choice but to tell people, because I know, you know, it's like, do you have any big trips coming up that you know about? No, but I could also be hospitalized tomorrow.
Exactly.
Like, so it's like, it's this catch-22, and applying for jobs, as you would know at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
is incredibly stressful and time-consuming already, and then to decide whether or not, you know, you're gonna be able to get that job because you might have mental health problems, disabilities, whatever it is, it's really hard. And then I do think a lot of people have to feel like they have to work harder, like me, and be perfect all the time in the work they're doing, just so that they don't lose their job, or you know.
And I feel like, I don't know, part of me is like, they should want to know, because if something, employers should want to know what you have, because then if something does happen, they know, okay, it's because of this. This is the process we need to do, you know, like if you're...
Like how to support you.
Exactly.
It's really interesting. I'm currently working on my workplace policies, as you probably have figured out.
I know it. Yep.
And it was really interesting. Because I've written all these policies, I've written up the policies, and I'm working with someone who's an HR expert to kind of refine them and make sure that I'm doing the right thing with them. And it was really interesting because I have a specific mental health and well-being policy. Like that's something that was important to me. It's the work that I do. And in that, I didn't just chuck in at the bottom or anything. It's like right in the middle of the policy, I put in a couple support line numbers for people who do have mental health struggles. And I wonder, do you know what I'm thinking, like on the spot would be a great way to, like, for any of our listeners to find out how supportive a workplace is, like if you're going to interviews or whatever, is asking about a mental health and wellness policy. You know, like if you're in an interview being like, you know, when they're like, hey, do you have any extra questions? You can, you know, oh, I'm wondering what your workplace policies are on health and well-being. You don't have to say mental health. You can just say health and well-being.
Yeah.
Because I know for me, if I was to go back into employed work instead of running my business, that would be something that I'd want to know about. Like not just around mental health, but just around health in general. Like how do you support, whether that's chronic health or not, but you know, how are you supporting your employees? Oh, big brain moment.
That was a very good big brain moment.
Yeah. Because in my policy, I've got a list of, like, I've got Lifeline and Kids Helpline, like all of these things, and a line that's like, they don't come back to me. This is third party stuff. This is just for your support. But that, it's just interesting to me. I actually do wonder how many workplaces have health and wellness policies to help protect their staff.
Yeah, that's something I'm really thinking about now. I'm like, because I feel like, you know, health and wellness businesses would, but just, I don't want to say general, but businesses that aren't primarily focused on health and wellness, I wonder if they...
I know the supermarkets I worked in wouldn't have had one. Definitely didn't have one. Like, it's not part of any of the training or the documents that I read. It's not covered. I think it's like a line that's like, oh, if you need help, go, you know, we've got the EAP. That's
terrible.
You know? Is there anything you wish workplaces knew about mental health and inclusion?
Oh, I don't know if this is going to make sense, but if you have, just say, for example, you have two employees with the same condition, they're not going to be like mirrored. That, like, you know, you and I both have eating disorder history, but they both presented completely different ways. And so I think just because what you expect from one employee is not necessarily going to be the same for another. And one thing that might work for this person isn't necessarily going to benefit this person, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. Yeah. I mean, I think not pitting employees against each other. Oh,
absolutely.
Just, even if they don't have mental health or anything, like just maybe don't pit, like let's say I had another admin assistant, I would never, I could never pit the two of you against it. Like, that would be so weird to do. Like, to sit and think, oh, well, you know, Sharna can do X. Why can't, I don't know, Sally do Y? You know, why can't Sally do X? You know, like, it would be so weird to me. But it does happen.
Yeah.
Like, it does happen. And that's the, you know, it's just crazy.
You
know, I think workplaces need to know that doing the bare minimum is not doing enough.
You
know, like I think bosses, I speak as a boss, I think bosses need to actively, like, how many times have I messaged, like, you know, you've said, oh, I'm not doing well, and I'm like, are you sure you don't need the day off? Like,
you do that.
You know, like,
that.
You know, and being proactive, not reactive in how you're addressing your staff, how you're making accommodations, you know, all of that. You know, I think being proactive as a boss, being proactive is important because I do worry. Like, I'm like, I worry sometimes that you're going to push yourself for your job. You know, oh, I've got a shift. Yeah. I'm not doing well. I don't want to let Sam down by not showing up. Yeah. And so I feel like as a boss, it's my responsibility to look after you and be like, you know, I can, not as quick as I used to be able to when I did them all the time, do the invoices, but I can do the invoices. Like, it's not out of my ability, you know, so it's, I think having that, I think it's important. I wish workplaces were more proactive in that and actually checking in with staff. Like, I can't remember ever being checked in on when I worked in the supermarket.
Oh, that's terrible.
You know, and I'd be in the break room crying and no one's saying anything to me, and I'm like, I'm dying. Somebody say something to me. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's what I wish workplaces knew was, and bosses knew especially, to be proactive. But I spend all day worrying about people's health and well-being, so
you work with health and well-being
clients,
and I think I really like, just to add on what you said, I know this week I'm super busy, and I was like I could maybe work Friday, and you're like, it's so fine.
Yeah, I literally was like, I'll give you this week off. I was also not very proactive in my rostering, so just have the week off. You know, we'll recuperate in, you know, when you're settled in with what you're doing at, you know, the next couple of weeks, you know, once you're settled a little bit, you know, then you come back, you know. Because, when I read the message, I was like, you were so, like, unsure about this. You were like, I literally read it like, I could maybe, if you really need me to, work Friday. And
I was like, I could do Friday or maybe some hours on Monday.
Yeah, and I went, and I was like, I read that and I was like, nah, Sharna doesn't need to work this week. Sharna doesn't need the stress of me being like, do a shift as well.
Yeah, which I think I value that so much, because I know at my previous job, I would be scared. Like, I was scared to tell my boss that, like, I could not do a shift, even if I told them, like, weeks in advance, because that's how nervous I would be. And you don't want to be scared of your boss or scared to tell them that you can't work, especially when you're casual. Because I was casual at this hospitality place as well. And so it shouldn't be on me to always be working. If they should have enough staff, or they should be able to deal with if I cannot work a day, because that's in my rights as being a casual.
Yeah, no,
if that makes sense.
No, that makes heaps of sense. Yeah. And it's like, I know when I worked as a casual, I would often just go in if I wasn't well, mentally or physically. If I wasn't well, I would go to the shift and just wait for them to send me home.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, like, I wouldn't cancel. I wouldn't be like, I can't work, I'm not feeling well. I would just go in and then have a breakdown or whatever. And then they'd be like, well, you can't work. And I'm like, yeah, I did know this 6 hours ago.
Yeah, but I didn't want to tell you.
I didn't want to tell you. And it is a genuine fear. And I definitely know I don't have the answers. Like, I know there is no right answer to disclose or not disclose. There's no simple, as my partner would say, there's no disco option. Yeah. You know, which means, by the way, that there's no good choice. It's a video game reference.
I've never heard your partner say that expression before, but I kind of love it.
It's a video game, from a video game.
Of course it is.
But I love it. No disco option, you know. There's no party. And so it's really up to individuals. Like, I know I choose to disclose because with the types of mental health, because I could end up in the hospital literally tomorrow. I know for myself that if I'm going to work for someone, or whether that's a client or an employer, I don't want them to just get a surprise. Yeah. I want them to know coming up that I don't say I'm a liability, because I'm not a liability, but that there is some risk in that decision.
Yeah.
And I want them to be as prepared. And if they're going to hire me, or, you know, whether that's a client hiring me or an employer hiring me, I want them to know that just going in. Because I would much rather not get the job straight up than have to pretend to be someone I'm not. That's my personal opinion on that.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes, like, depending on whatever our listeners are going through, you know, that you're the one who can make the best decision for you. So really, to disclose or not disclose is such a personal decision, and it may suck. Like, it may result in not getting, like, if you disclose or not disclose, it could result in not getting a job or getting, you know, fired or not getting hours, or, you know, there is that risk, which is why I don't think we can, well, I can say for sure, hey, this is what you should do, because I just don't think there's a right option.
Wow, that was like a lot. Oh my goodness.
You. I just thought I'd just be like, you know, like, what is the answer? I just don't think there is. I just don't think there is one, you know.
Yeah.
Do you have any?
Oh gosh. I really liked how you said how you always like disclose it because you don't want to be someone you're not.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And I know for a long time when I was at my hospitality job, and during that was when I got quite ill with my eating disorder. And, you know, we both know how secretive they are. And so after like a while, like maybe a year or two, I did say to one of my coworkers, I was like, hey, I don't know if you knew this or not. And they were like, oh, no, I didn't know. And I don't know, part of me wanted them to know, but then also didn't want them to know, because I know my boss definitely was aware that something was going on, because they would make comments on my body. And I was like, oh, that made me kind of uncomfortable, but then also sort of fueled that part of me.
Yeah.
And so when I told this coworker, and they were like, oh, I didn't notice, that eating disorder part of me was like, oh, well, that person didn't notice you were sick. You weren't sick enough. So it's interesting. And so now I think with like you or future employments, I think because there is still, in my mind, there's still quite a connotation with body size and shape and weight with regards to eating disorders. So I think with, I don't know, future employment opportunities, whether I'm still struggling or if I'm in that recovered space, which I think I'm getting to, like I don't consider myself fully recovered, but I'm getting there. And so I think not fully disclosing it like you, but I think I'll be like, hey, I have struggled with this. I do struggle with this, just because I don't want that association with them being like, oh, well, you don't look, you know how people are always like, oh, you don't look like you have an eating disorder. It's like, it's a mental condition. Oh my God. It makes me so mad, Sam.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know. Part of me, I think I half and half would, whereas you would be like, fully disclose it.
Do you know what though? The level of disclosure does change. Like when I'm working with clients in our first meeting, I will, like with working with clients, I'll be like, look, I've got bipolar, you know, all of this.
Yeah.
But if I was to go to a job interview, I wouldn't like lay it out like I've got bipolar, autism, all of this. I would just say, look, I've got some health concerns that may require my attention. So I think there is a degree, like a level of how much you can disclose as well. You don't have to just lay it all out on the table.
Exactly.
You know, it can be, you know, you can test, I feel like you can there is a way to test the waters, you know. So if I was going to a job interview, absolutely, I wouldn't be like, oh, I've got a history of an eating, like it's not a freaking, I'm not checking the ER.
The mole off.
But you can say something as simple as, hey, I've got some, you can be like, it's not going to impact my ability to do the job, you know, and all of that. Or, you know, it may be something like, you know, like with autism sometimes, and ADHD especially, you can require some levels of like accommodations, and you can be like, you could say something like, oh, it's not going to impact my ability to do this job, but I may require some accommodations such as, you know, maybe a standing desk, or maybe you need, you know, work from home options. And I think one good thing I think that came from COVID was the ability to work from home. I know the government's trying to change that at the moment and be like, you can't work from home. But like there's always, I know, like one thing for you that I feel is an accommodation I make for you is the fact that, one accommodation that I make for you is I know that you prefer like voice memos and text. Like that's kind of how you process information. And while I don't always do it for you, because as you would know about me, I'm a reader and a text processor. But one accommodation I do make for you is I send voice memos and listen to your voice memos. And even if I don't respond to your voice memo in a voice memo, I do, like, I'll still text. And that's one way, you know, I know that in my policies, like in my inclusion policies, it's like, if you let me know what your accommodations are, I will make them for you. Like, again, as a boss, there's ways to kind of think about these things. And if you're a small business, like if you run a small business or part of a small business, definitely ask. Like, I know that not a lot of people who are small, like I am, where it's just one staff member, have these policies. But it's always, you know, just advice to any small business person that is here. But also the policies protect me, not just from clients or anything, but make sure that I'm meeting my accommodations. And But anyway, my point was, you know, if you do think you need accommodations, you can always be in an interview or say to your boss, like, you know, my health is not going to impact the job, but I do need these accommodations in order to do it well, or whatever. I got a little bit sidetracked there. But
no, I love that. That was great.
Whether you're clocking in while barely holding it together or trying to decide if it's safe to speak up, we absolutely see you. There's no right or wrong answer when it comes to disclosure, only what feels right for you in this moment. As I kind of said before, I just really want to hammer down that point where it's like, there is only what feels right for you. Your mental health is not a flaw, it's not unprofessional, and if a workplace can't handle the fact that you're actually a human being, that says a lot more about the workplace and the system than it does about you. In fact, it says everything about the system and nothing about you.
As always, if this episode spoke to something you've experienced, we'd love to hear from you. You can find us on our Instagram at halfway to healing with little underscores between where the spaces would be. Our website is halfwaytohealing.com for all our episodes, transcripts, blog posts, and support resources. You can find them there.
And if you're feeling generous, hit follow, leave us a comment, or share this episode with someone who might be navigating a tricky work environment. It helps us keep these conversations going. Next week's episode is a big one. We're talking about living in a body that feels like a stranger. Whether it's chronic illness, trauma, disability, eating disorders, or you just don't feel at home in your own skin, we're going to explore what it means to come back to yourself slowly and gently.
Thanks for being here with us. We'll see you next time on Halfway to Healing. Have a good week, everyone.